Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rhonda Studnick Kaiser, and I'm the Director of Customer Engagement for BigFix, and I'll be hosting our BigFix Briefing Room for December webinar today. We are recording today's webinar. If this presents you with any concerns, please drop at this time. You'll be able to access the recording of the event about an hour after we conclude. You'll simply follow the same registration link that you used to join us, and you'll instead access a recording of the event. Just to note, you can also share your link with colleagues who might not have been able to join. They'll be presented with a registration page, and then we'll be able to access the recording. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Ken Vendler, to lead us through today's webinar. Go ahead, Ken.
Thanks, Rhonda. So for today's agenda, wanted to introduce myself to those of you that have not joined one of these before when I was on here. So we'll do a brief meet your hosts, followed by talking about latest Microsoft security updates. So yesterday was Patch Tuesday. Microsoft has released over 130 patches. So we'll go through those and look at the vulnerabilities that those patches are created to address. We'll also look at latest reported Linux kernel security issues, as well as a number of Apple security updates. This has been a really busy month, particularly for Apple. So we'll be looking at the products that they have created updates for. And then we're going to be talking about logo fail, which is a recently disclosed vulnerability involving the UEFI firmware and maliciously crafted logo images for computer boot screens. We'll also be talking about SLAM, which is an Intel and AMD related vulnerability having to do with linear address masking as it relates to the well-known Spectre vulnerabilities. We'll also be talking about what a kazoo is. That'll be an interesting topic of discussion. Furthermore, we'll be looking at BigFix 11, just a public service announcement on some things that you can do. Primarily, having a BigFix health check done prior to your upgrade to ensure that your upgrade to BigFix 11 is a smooth and uneventful one. On your mark, get BigFix certified. We'll review the latest in BigFix certifications. Ending up our call today, we will talk about upcoming events for 2024 and resources for our BigFix users at large. So Rhonda, who is our ever-present host, is responsible for customer outreach. Her work impacts cross-functionally across the organization from engineering to product management. She is a wonderful asset, wonderful colleague to work with, and it's a pleasure to be here with her. And thank you again, Rhonda, for having me. My name is Ken Vendler. I am a BigFix technical advisor. I live in the greater Cincinnati area, and I joined HCL back in 2022. Prior to my employment here with HCL, I worked for a regional managed services provider as a Chief Information Security Officer. And you can read more here about me at your leisure. With that, let's get into the latest Microsoft security updates. As many of you are probably aware, yesterday was Patch Tuesday. Microsoft released over 130 critical updates alone for their Microsoft Windows products. Those products range everything from Windows Server 2008 all the way up to the most recent version of Windows Server 2022. For client operating systems, Windows 10 and Windows 11 were in scope, and not just for Intel x86 and x64, but also the ARM platform as well received some updates as well. This large number of critical updates addresses really 4 critical CVEs listed here with a CVSS score ranging from a quote unquote low of 8.1 all the way up to a 9.6. So the theme for the week seems to be remote code execution vulnerabilities. That made up the bulk of the updates here. So you'll.
Hey Ken, so I pretend to be a security kind of minded person, but maybe you can remind people what remote code execution vulnerabilities are and why they're so important.
Sure. So a remote code execution vulnerability is a vulnerability that exists where when it is exploited, an attacker, the malicious user that has carried out the attack, can then execute arbitrary code on the target system as if he was there. So essentially, it's giving a malicious user a remote control, so to speak, to control your computer over the internet from another network. And these can be very dangerous because once you have this level of access to a system, you can further compromise that system, because once you've exploited a remote code execution vulnerability, you can use that to install additional malicious software. You can set up key logging. You can set up a botnet. You can install ransomware. So these remote code execution vulnerabilities are very severe just by their nature.
Thanks for that.
Yep, you're welcome. So yeah, you'll notice several here listed, two of them pertaining to internet connection sharing. So if you are not using internet connection sharing in your environment, highly recommend that you disable that, and or patch for these CVEs as well. So anytime you are not using a service like internet connection sharing, it's best to disable that to help mitigate those vulnerabilities before patching them. So while Microsoft was busy, the Linux kernel received quite a bit of attention just this week with 5 particular CVEs. The severity ranging from 5.5 to 7.1. These were all reported by Red Hat, and they affect various Red Hat products, including RHEL 8, RHEL 9, and then even non-RHEL distributions of Linux, including Linux kernel versions up to including 6.6, and even the first 4 release candidates for kernel version 6.7. So it's been a busy week. It's been a busy week for Microsoft, as well as for the Linux kernel team as well. Apple has probably been the busiest this week of them all. For their various iOS and macOS products, we can see the number of CVEs that they have addressed. So if you are running iOS or iPad OS 16.7, you are highly recommended to update to 16.7.3. Among the CVEs addressed here are several remote code execution vulnerabilities, as well as some data leakage and data privacy related issues. One of these particular CVEs is addressing a vulnerability in Bluetooth, where an attacker could potentially take over an iOS or iPad OS device remotely over Bluetooth. Furthermore, if you're on iOS 17, you're encouraged to upgrade to 17.2, and then the Mac OS OS updates here we have for both Monterey and Ventura, as well as Sonoma. So 15, 17, and 40 CVEs addressed in those OS releases together. There were 6 vulnerabilities in the ncurses library that's used by Mac OS that were addressed for each of these. Safari 17 in turn received an update and addresses 2 CVEs. tvOS, if you're using Apple TV, has an update that addresses 8 CVEs, and even Apple Watch OS, the latest release of Watch OS 10.2 addresses 9 CVEs. Logo fail is a recently disclosed vulnerability that came out this past week that has to do with UEFI firmware and the boot process on computers. In summary, what logo fail does is it injects a maliciously crafted logo image. So we'll use HP as an example. An attacker can create a malicious image of the HP logo that, when improperly parsed during the UEFI boot of an HP device, has the ability to completely bypass all security mechanisms that are built into the UEFI, as well as the Intel management engine and any other firmware security features. So that's what makes this really damaging, because you can have your operating system completely up to date, you can have antivirus, you can be fully protected, but this crucial part of the boot process at UEFI can essentially override all of that and bypass those security precautions. So customers, go ahead, Rhonda.
No, I think we're good. Just double checking. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought you had a question. So
Nope.
if you are affected by logo fail, and it's almost easier to say who is not susceptible to this. So Mac devices are not affected by this because of the way that Apple signs the images, the embedded images in their UEFI. So if you are a Mac user, you are more than likely not susceptible to this. Most Dell machines, it is reported, are not susceptible to this. But for other vendors, if you are an HP, Asus, MSI, Lenovo user, it's recommended that you contact your vendor to download the latest security updates for your firmware. So SLAM is the next topic today. It seems like the Spectre and Meltdown vulnerabilities that have been prevalent in the past couple of years seem to never exactly go completely away. And so SLAM is kind of the latest iteration of that. SLAM stands for Spectre enabled linear address masking. So linear address masking is a feature on Intel CPUs. AMD and ARM also have similar processes that they call by a different name, but the underlying technology is designed to take a memory pointer on a 64-bit architecture and allow that memory pointer to use certain bits and bytes to address certain metadata. So instead of the memory pointer being exclusively used just for memory addressing, LAM essentially lets application writers access metadata with that particular technology. It's very intriguing in what it does, and it has some really useful applications. However, the implementation of it can be very tricky because you're essentially masking off certain memory addresses in the architecture, and if they are not properly accounted for, it can cause anything from an application crash to a system kernel panic, or in the case of SLAM, it can cause unencrypted data from the kernel to be leaked out into unprivileged user space. So SLAM is known primarily for affecting Intel. AMD processors are also affected, as well as ARM64. So it is highly recommended that if you're not using the LAM technology, that you disable this in your firmware so that you are protected from this. The Linux kernel team is currently working on patches to mitigate this particular vulnerability. And then the CPU manufacturers are also reviewing their microcode and will likely be releasing microcode updates in the future to address this. And so finally, the most interesting and colorful of these vulnerabilities that have made recent news is Kaiser. Kaiser is named after an evil mythological being that was known to prowl in the evening and eat cattle and chickens. Appropriately, its name has also been given to a recently discovered remote access Trojan. The intriguing part about this particular remote access Trojan is it's been lurking on systems for 2 years without being detected. And it's a company, or accomplished this rather, by use of a rootkit. And a rootkit can essentially mask the behavior and presence of other malicious software.
So Ken, go back on Kaiser. Remote access Trojan? What is that?
Yep. So, yeah, it's a good question. It doesn't sound very good, and it's not. So, a remote access Trojan, also known as a RAT, is a piece of software that acts like it's a useful program. You know, a free game, a screensaver, an application. Oftentimes, pirated software carries Trojan code in it. So the user is, tricked into installing this secretive piece of software, alluding back to the Trojan horse during the Trojan War. Once this software is installed by the user, it then can carry out other actions. So in this case, the Trojan, once installed on the Linux system, then opens up some ports for real-time streaming protocol, and then downloads additional payloads onto the computer without the user's knowledge or consent. Part of that payload is something called a rootkit. And so if a computer virus is compared to, say, the cold or the flu, a rootkit could really be compared to cancer, because cancer hides itself in the human body and presents itself as part of the human body. And this rootkit can hook into functions of the host operating system's kernel. And so you could be running the latest antivirus, the latest XDR software, but if you have a rootkit, the rootkit can actually hide itself from your anti-malware. So that's what makes Kaiser as dangerous as it is, because it's been introduced into Linux systems inadvertently, masquerading as a helpful or useful program. But then now it's opened up remote access, and it's now protected itself with a rootkit.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that tutorial. I appreciate it. Always trying to share useful information with our friends.
Yep, always. That's what these sessions are for. So many of my customers in particular have reached out to me with questions about upgrading to BigFix 11. they've asked me, how can I make this as smooth a process as possible? So as kind of a public service announcement, what I'd like to say is, if anyone listening is looking to upgrade to BigFix 11, first reach out to your sales team, including your product specialist and your technical advisor. Let's schedule a complimentary BigFix health check. These health checks are invaluable for uncovering potential hidden issues in a BigFix deployment. And sometimes these issues can interrupt the upgrade process of the BigFix platform. So it really is helpful to go into these situations armed with as much knowledge as possible so that your upgrade process is as smooth and uneventful as possible. So if you don't know who your product specialist or technical advisor are, reach out to Rhonda or reach out to me, and we will get you in touch with the appropriate people. I am the technical advisor for US Plains and Canada. So if you're in those regions, I would most likely be your technical advisor. But if you don't know who that person is, let us know and we'll get you in touch, and we can get you a BigFix health check scheduled prior to your upgrade. So we have, and we've been announcing this for the past several months, the HCL software certification for BigFix Compliance 10, as well as the HCL software certification for BigFix Platform 10 Professional. So if you're looking to advance and increase your existing BigFix skills, and you're looking to demonstrate your experience and knowledge, these exams might just be right for you. So feel free to scan these QR codes and reach out to us if you have questions. We'd love to see as many people get certified as soon as possible. And we are constantly adding new certifications to our library.
Absolutely. One point on that as well as I have heard told that there will be, since we've recently released the BigFix Platform 11, that certification is coming relatively soon. So, kind of keep that in mind, that's coming up in case maybe you're not quite sure about Platform 10 and maybe you want to be a little forward looking, you can wait a little bit longer and get the Platform 11 professional certification. And also wanted to just make a plug that when you do go to those sites that are referenced here, there are great exam guides that will help you kind of study up and get ready for these exams. And there's also free, yes, free training available for those of you who want to maybe go through the compliance training and remind yourself of all the things that you've forgotten about compliance and then go take the test. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Ken's actually teaching one of our free training classes this week, teaching a relevance class. So, you have some of the best and the brightest in the BigFix space that are teaching these classes and helping you get ready to get certified.
Yeah, and I enjoy these classes when I'm teaching them because it lets me meet, not only some of my customers, but, some other customers across the world. And it's really rewarding to be able to help them, develop their BigFix skills, develop that confidence, and just to see them really excel at this. So not many companies provide free training for their products. This is something that sets HCL BigFix apart. So please, if you are looking to get additional skills, check out our training. We would love to have you in a class. Upcoming events. So with this being, the last BigFix briefing room of the year, things are kind of winding down for 2023. We're currently working on getting some events scheduled for early next year, early January and February. So on January 10th, join us on 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern for our next BigFix briefing room. That will be a virtual event. And then if you're in the Toronto area on January 30th, myself and a couple other colleagues will be conducting a workshop on application and IT infrastructure security. So we'll be joined by the AppScan team, and so AppScan and BigFix will be doing a double header presentation in Toronto. So feel free to scan the QR code there if you're looking for more information on that. And with that, just wanted to make aware of additional resources that we have. Check out the BigFix forum. We also have a Slack channel that a number of us are very active on. So if you have questions about how to use the product or you're working on some custom content, feel free to check us out at the forum or on Slack. BigFix is also on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. So if you use any of those social media services, come check us out there. And we have our YouTube channel that we are continually adding new content to on how-to videos. I'm actually looking at getting a couple posted here in the next month or so that I've been working on. And if you haven't already signed up, there's the BigFix newsletter. So yeah, we have a wealth of resources to help you, whether it's with product knowledge, you have a support issue, or you just want to know, hey, how do I do this thing? One thing that I've found personally with using the forum is when I've gone to try to create some content, most of what I do is not unique, right? Somebody else has already tried to solve that problem. So it's sometimes good to interact with other people that have worked through similar problems. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know how we can be of help to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for pulling all this together, and as always, doing a great job of presenting. Really appreciate it. If you go back one slide, I also wanted to mention that if there's something that you guys use regularly that as a resource for your BigFix activities and it's not here, you can always drop me a line via the forum or via Slack and let me know, because we are consistently and constantly making changes to this as things evolve. So if there's something else you want here that you don't see, you can always certainly send it my way. I'm happy to make some additions based on the users in our world. So thanks again for joining us today. We didn't have any questions, so I think we'll just go ahead and wrap up and let you resume your day. Good luck with your patching this month and keeping up with all of the ever-changing things that Ken's made us aware of today. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome, Rhonda, and thank you for having me. Take care, everyone. Have a great holiday.